Good afternoon. Thanks very much for coming. As I said in my statement this morning, Australia is outraged by the Israeli government's decision to not pursue any criminal proceedings against those responsible for killing Zami Frankcom and her World Central Kitchen colleagues. Australian government learned of Israel's decision late last night, moments before it was announced, on World Humanitarian Day. It is the day we commemorate humanitarian workers lost and celebrate and commend the work of humanitarians everywhere. We had just launched the Zami Frankcom Humanitarian Award. And we didn't have the opportunity to inform Zomi's family before Israel's decision was made public because of the lack of notice. To learn of these developments in these circumstances was especially insulting and hurtful to Zomi's loved ones, to humanitarians and to Australians. And today I called in Ambassador Hillel Newman, the Israeli ambassador to Australia. And I made clear to him Australia's views, that Israel's decision falls far short of the accountability we expect. And last night, Australia's ambassador to Israel conveyed the same message directly to Israeli authorities, including the office of the Foreign Minister. There are still many unanswered questions. These include why, even if the first strike was a catastrophic error, 2 further strikes followed, each 2 minutes apart. As Mark Binskin concluded in his public report, these strikes were in violation of Israeli Defence Force standard operating procedures and rules of engagement. We still have not had a satisfactory explanation of why the strike occurred in a humanitarian fire control zone, and after High Command had directed the brigade commander not to engage the convoy. We have not had a satisfactory explanation regarding the senior brigade officer involved in the strikes being a signatory to a letter to the IDF Chief of the General Staff calling for aid to be restricted to Gaza. We have not received the drone audio as requested multiple times by the government on behalf of Zomi's family. The Australian government does not believe that the removal of 2 officers from their positions and 3 officers being reprimanded is sufficient accountability for the deaths of 7 people, including an Australian citizen. And we do not have confidence in the IDF's Military Advocate General's process, given the many unanswered questions. And I would note this follows a case where the former Military Advocate General was arrested after allegedly acting as a whistleblower and leaking surveillance footage showing Israeli soldiers abusing Palestinian detainees. I have said many times, and I say it again, democracies seek and accept higher standards. The Australian government will continue to keep pressing Israel for justice for Zomi and her colleagues, and we will consult with Zami Frankcom's family before we announce further steps. In my meeting with the Israeli ambassador, I also raised the Israeli government's publication of a tender for the E1 settlement. It is a project which the United Kingdom has described as an unacceptable and destructive act, and Australia agrees with the United Kingdom, and we call for the tender to be retracted, which I communicated to the ambassador. As I said to him, we believe there will be no peace for Israelis or Palestinians without a 2-state solution. Happy to take questions.
Minister, as he was leaving here, the ambassador said, what does it mean, justice? Do you lynch people in the street? What does justice look like, or should justice look like, for the Frankcom family? And can you explain why you haven't expelled the ambassador when so many people are asking you to do that?
Well, I don't want to speak for Mal Frankcom and the family. I was with him just a few hours before this news broke, and I respect him greatly and what he's done in the years in the time since his sister's passing and the way he secured her legacy. I'll leave the family to speak for themselves. What I would say to you, Mark, is, and you've probably heard me say it previously, we don't maintain diplomatic relations as an endorsement of any particular country. We maintain those relationships because they enable us to engage in order to advance Australia's interests. And that is what we do. Removing an ambassador would remove our ability to be able to engage, press for Australia's interests, and on this, relevantly here, to put the views of Australia and Zomi's Australia and on an ongoing basis of Zomi's family to the Israeli government.
Minister, can I ask just in terms of the drone strike audio, Hillel Newman, the Israeli ambassador, was asked about this directly at the press club months ago, yet today he was again saying it's not up to him, he doesn't have any more information, it's something for the Israeli Defence Forces. One of the questions that has been raised is whether or not you should expel him specifically and ask Israel to send somebody who can actually be someone you work with. Is that being contemplated? And what do you think of his ongoing reticence to actually deal with an issue that he said months ago he would deal with?
Our position on the drone footage audio is being clear and consistent. We have called for that consistently at a range of levels of government, including by me. In relation to his presence, I deal with Ambassador Hillel as a representative of the government of Israel.
Minister, the ambassador also said in his comments that this decision was the result of a legal process, that you can't just dismiss that if you disagree with the decision of this legal process. Do you have confidence in the legal processes? Because it sounds like you don't.
Well, I believe, we believe, the Australian government believes that this decision fails to engage with key questions that have been raised in the Binskin inquiry and subsequently. So that is the first point. The second point, and this is very important, this is not the conclusion of an investigation and a court trial, etc. It is a decision not to proceed with any criminal investigation whatsoever. So, it is a decision not to proceed with any criminal investigation whatsoever. We want answers to the questions, including those outlined, and we want accountability. 1, 2, 3.
Minister, what further steps could you consider?
Well, I would consult with Zomi's family on that.
Would you be interested in the International Criminal Court or a similar body looking at this? And could you comment on the fact, Mark Binson in his report, he spoke about procedural failures, that it wasn't necessarily a deliberate targeting of the workers themselves. Why are you going further necessarily than what he found in his report?
Well, no, actually, I don't agree with the way you've put that, Matthew. First, in relation to the ICC, that obviously they have they're an independent body and they have mechanisms available to them. But you asked me about ACM Binskin's report. The statement he made that you have referenced, he made clear it was based on the information available to him. And was not all of the information, and it did not deal with the questions. There was no answer to the questions that I have outlined at the commencement of this press conference. Phil.
So, in your words, how would you describe the status of the bilateral relationship between Australia and Israel?
Well, I think we have an Australian humanitarian worker who was killed, not on the first strike, but in the context of 3 separate strikes on a humanitarian convoy. I mean, obviously this is a difficult time in the relationship. We've made our views clear about this issue. We've made our views clear about other issues. You've seen the Netanyahu government's response to some of those. I think we are realistic about that.
Minister, in his comments today, the ambassador also suggested that the convoy didn't properly alert the Israeli authorities and was carrying armed personnel with it. What's your response?
Well, I think not that. Well, I'd encourage. I released the Binskin report, and I'd encourage people to look at that in response to some of those. But I think the questions that I outlined at the commencement of this press conference remain unanswered.
So you said you wouldn't speak next steps before you've spoken to the family again.
Correct.
Do you have any idea of when you might speak to them again and when you might announce next steps? And also, the Green Party has raised the issue of the company Celebrite, which is run by former IDF officials, contracting with the New South Wales government, contracting with federal government to, basically hack cell phones for law enforcement. Do you think there is a possibility that federal contracts with Israel-connected companies or state contracts should be looked at as part of this question?
Well, I think that's a question about sanctions. We have sanctioned Israeli ministers, and I think you've seen the response from Prime Minister Netanyahu's government on that. We have sanctioned those engaging in settler violence and some settler entities, and we have done so because we are holding very clearly to a view that we want peace in the Middle East, we want the peace plan implemented, and we believe that two states is required to ensure peace. Anything further?
In the Ambassador's comments to media today, when he was asked to apologise to the family, he said that word has legal connotations. Can I please get your response to that?
I think they deserve an apology.
And compensation?
At least. I think at minimum they deserve an apology.
What about the
I've said that
compensation?
publicly. Well, I will engage with Mal and the family about this. I'm not going to do that conference. I've tried in all of this to make sure we work with them. Obviously, they would like things to be very different. They'd like to still have Zomi with them, and they would like a very different process from the one we've seen. I'll finish at the end. Sorry, have you had
Just
one?
on the timing for next steps.
I'll meet with them as soon as I'm able to,
Thank you,
and
Mr.
when
If
they're
I could
ready
just
to.
ask-
And when they're ready to. Sorry.
Sorry, if I could just ask separately, you've terminated a couple of research agreements between Australia and Chinese universities on national security grounds. Could I ask what your concerns with those were, and will you seek a total ban on those sorts of relationships?
I terminated relationships as the minister has the power under the Act to do so on the basis of advice, and I don't propose to go through the nature of most of that advice for obvious reasons. We have a. I don't think we're saying to the world that we're not going to engage with the world. What we have to have is risk-aware engagement, and that's the approach we've taken, and that's the approach we're engaging with universities on. I'm very pleased that that legislation might well be being voted on as we speak to strengthen that act.
Minister.
Oh, okay. I'm going to finish this, though. 1, 2, 3, and then we're done. Thank you.
Minister, in his remarks to media today, the ambassador said that there were a lot of Israel haters in Australia. What do you make of that?
I don't speak for the ambassador.
Minister.
I'm sorry, I'm going here first. Thank
You
you.
led Labor's attack against the coalition over false allegations made by Brittany Higgins against her former boss, Fiona Brown, which alleged Ms Brown had been involved in covering up and mishandling reports of her rape for political purposes. Ms Brown has now been vindicated with this settlement with your own government. Do you accept this outcome and apologise to Ms Brown?
I am, the matter has been resolved, and I don't intend to comment further on it. Yeah.
Minister, the opposition has said the government should extend the reporting deadline for the Anti-Semitism Royal Commission, and that government ministers, including yourself, should appear as witnesses. Are you confident the Royal Commission can do its job without hearing from the government?
I have confidence in the Royal Commission. I don't intend to politicise it. Thank you very much. Cheers.